Hey, welcome to Leading with Gratitude. I'm your host, Chester Elton, the apostle of appreciation, and coming to you live from the new gratitude virus epicenter in Summit, New Jersey. Give us 30 minutes. We will give you great information, great inspiration, and a roadmap on how you can create your own personal culture of gratitude at work and where you live. And it's all brought to you on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, all those great platforms by the amazing people at the Methods Network. Well, I'm really excited to introduce today's guest. He's become a dear friend of mine. He is the incomparable, the amazing Martin Lindstrom. Let me tell you a little bit about Martin. He's the founder and chairman of Lindstrom Company, the world's leading brand and culture transformation group, operating across 5 continents and more than 30 countries. Time magazine has named Martin one of the world's 100 most influential people. And for 3 years running, Thinkers 50, the world's premier ranking source of business icons, has selected Lindstrom to be among the world's top 50 business thinkers. Martin is a high-profile speaker and author of 7 New York Times bestselling books, translated into 60 languages. His book, Brand Sense, was critically acclaimed by the Wall Street Journal as one of the 5 best marketing books ever published. Small Data, another one of his books, was praised as revolutionary, and Time magazine wrote this about biology. It's a breakthrough in branding. So welcome to the show, Martin. I couldn't be more delighted to have you with us today on Leading with Gratitude.
Thank you, Chester. I mean, the energy you have is extraordinary. I want to buy a little bit of that energy because I think the world needs it right now, desperately.
Well, I want to tell a quick story about you and I. We've known each other through our Marshall Goldsmith coaches group and so on. And we really got to know each other when we took, I think it was a 6-hour flight from San Diego to JFK on JetBlue. And that flight went by in a nanosecond. We couldn't stop talking and laughing. It was one of the greatest flights of my life.
Thank you. Thank you. It was a horror flight for me, but don't tell the person sitting next to me, okay?
Hey, listen, in the middle of the COVID virus, everybody needs branding advice. Everybody does. So talk to me about the human psychology right now going through a pandemic like this. I know you've got some really interesting research. What advice do you have for us?
Well, first of all, I want to look into your brain and into my brain for a second, because I'm not sure if you're like me, but what's fascinating is that I'm dropping balls left, right, and center at the moment. It's almost like I'm not 100% myself. I have this huge to-do list of things I want to check out all the time, every morning. Guess what? I'm not checking a single box. So I started to think about how calm I feel, a little bit sort of beside myself all the time, and realized there's a study back from 1998 where with radish and with cookies. The experiment was very simple. A group of respondents were put into a lab, and they were given the option of eating cookies. At least 50% of them were, and the other group, the other 50%, were asked to eat some radish. Now, both groups could see the other beautiful jars with the cookies and the radish, but they were not allowed to eat from them. Now, after this experiment were concluded, what happened was that no one, by the way, took any of the other cookies or the radish. But after the experiment was concluded, a second part was happening, which was really fascinating, because the first thing, why do I talk about it? It's a bit boring here, right? Now, the second part was really fascinating, because at that stage, the scientist gave each of those 2 groups a puzzle, a really complex puzzle, so complex that no one actually would be able to solve it. And the people which were eating those beautiful chocolate chip cookies, they actually spent 80 minutes trying to solve this puzzle before they gave up. Now, the other group, the ones eating the radish and which were not allowed to eat the cookies, They only lasted for 8 minutes, then they gave up. And what is fascinating about this experiment was that what the scientists concluded is that when I'm going through a huge challenge internally in my head and I had to resist certain things, so I had to change my behavior. In fact, what happens is that I spend too much memory encoding going on in my brain, and as a consequence, I really break down slowly. So when we today feel that we're lazy because we can't tick all our to-do box lists and all that stuff, it's not because we're lazy, it's because we're exhausted. And we in the world right now are really exhausted from behavioral change. We constantly have to think about keeping a distance, not shaking hands, cleaning all the jars with sanitizing products, all that stuff. So I think the first thing is we're exhausted. The second thing which I'm seeing happening now is that we eat more. I mean, you and I were talking about how we're eating during our movies in the night and doing what I call
constantly eating, yeah.
Constantly. Yeah, this autopilot of mindless munching, right? And what I believe is going to happen is we will be all overweight. We're going to look like these balloons walking around, right? After the whole recession or the whole crisis is over. The third thing is domestic violence. We're seeing a lot of tensions going on around in the homes, and we see statistics sadly supporting this, not just in the US, but across the world. And the fourth thing, which I think comes straight down to your sweet spot, that is that people are going to question themselves. They're going to ask themselves, why am I here? What is my purpose in life? And I think a lot of people are using this crisis to reset their own image. They're basically saying, hey, I stood for something before we went into this crisis. What do I want to stand for as I leave it? Because obviously my life has to be rethought. So I think a lot of things are going to happen. And as a consequence of that, we're going to see a lot of new business opportunities happening as well, besides the fact that I think we as humans are going to change quite a lot.
Right. Well, first and foremost, before I lose the thought, is I'm a total chocolate chip cookie guy. I would have stuck with that puzzle for hours. Just chocolate chip cookie after chocolate chip cookie.
Yeah.
I'd have been fine. I do agree with you on this. I'm exhausted. It is. Your routine is upside down, and it is unfortunate that domestic violence has gone up. Now, you talk about this time to say, what do I stand for? I want to ask you about reinventing your personal brand, because there is time to do that now. Like you say, rethink your core values. So what do I want to stand for? So what are some tips that you might have for people to say, look, now is my time to really either reinforce my personal brand or to change my personal brand?
Well, it's a good question, and I want to give you a simple challenge. You should try exercising yourself. If I take anything which is really representing a strong brand in the world, you will notice that you can squeeze it into just one word. So if I take, for example, if I take the word search, for example, what brand are you thinking about?
Google.
Exactly. One word is owned by one company. Now, is Google the best search engine in the world? You would have no clue, because you probably will look up in Google saying, what's the best search engine in the world? And what do you think the answer is going to be? Okay. Yeah. So one word, if I take the car industry and I say the word safety, you probably will say Volvo. So my challenge to you is, what is your one word? If I should squeeze you as a person into one simple word, what is it? And you can't just say, well, I'm service-minded, I'm international, I'm all about consumer psychology, because these words are most likely taken by someone else in the world. So you have to figure out what is the one word which typically is not straightforward, but which makes you think. And that one word should drive everything you do in the future. So during this break, think about what was your one word and what should your one word be, and then make sure that everything is centered around that one word.
That's fascinating. So you know me fairly well now. So if you were to say, Chester, here's your one word, what's the first word that pops into your head when you, Chester Elton equals
super
what?
simple. It is super simple. It's gratitude, of
Yes.
course. I mean,
Yes.
how can you ask that question? Of course. And do you know what? I know you, and I know this is not hooly balloony. It's true. It is really true, you. I think in the past, people probably would have said orange or carrot or something, but I actually do think that you have slowly merged into gratitude, and it really is you in every aspect of your life, both privately and at work. So I think it's true. And I think all of you guys watching and listening online now, don't put on a fake word, which is what you'd like to be, but you will never get there. No, put on a word which is true to you, or at least where you'd like to be, and you believe you have the talent to go there. Because if there's a too big disconnect between perception and reality, people will smell it a mile away.
Right, right. It has to be genuine. Absolutely. So tell me, small businesses, a lot of them have closed. A lot of them have had to lay off their people and whatnot. What advice have you got for small businesses going through this crisis now? Any tips, any tools?
I have a lot. Let me tell you a story. Some years ago, I was asked by a major car company in Japan to help them, in Korea, to help them get over the 2008 crisis. So you remember the 2008 crisis, everything went
Yep.
downhill, and the entire car industry in the US was bailed out with very few exceptions by the US government. Now, this Korean company, they monitored the whole situation. And here's the interesting thing. The US car companies concluded very quickly that consumers do not have the money. So the only way they can survive is to cut the cost of what a car is costing. And guess what? They really didn't sell a lot. The Korean company did something unusual. They started to do consumer insight. And through the insight, they realized that, in fact, people do have the money. They're just afraid of not using them because afraid of using them if they are being fired or terminated from their key income. So they introduced, based on that, what is called the Hyundai warranty. And it was a simple guarantee that if you buy a car from Hyundai and you lose your job within a year, you just return the car and all money will be refunded straight away, no questions asked. Now, I was monitoring the whole situation, of course, from 2008, and guess what? Sales went up of Korean cars, so the Hyundai cars, with 12% in 2008, and in 2009 it went up 14%. And I asked the CEO later on, 2 years later on, how many cars were returned, and the answer was 5. And that is the
5.
essence of 5 cars, right? Because it's fear. And what we're seeing right now is a lot of fear going on. So don't be fooled by the fact that people may not buy your product or service, even though they actually in theory should need it right now. Understand the deeper root cause, and do that by talking to people at a deeper level. And once you understand that, then redesign your product or your service around it. Or just like Hyundai, ensure that you put in a warranty or other dimensions which can help you bypass this crisis at the moment, right?
That is so smart. Not surprising. You're one of the smartest branding people on the planet. My point is this, is that safety piece is even more accentuated for COVID. We've got a restaurant client, and they're already preparing for when COVID is over, and their brand is going to be the cleanest restaurant you've ever eaten in, right? Take that fear away. They're going to continue to use masks and gloves. And, it's one of those things where they say, look, when you walk into our restaurant, we wanted you to smell like the fresh baked bread and the meat grilling and so on. Now we want you to smell Clorox, that you can be super safe. I don't know how appetizing that'll be. The point is create that safety. Well, listen, so there will be life after COVID. And I think the really good brands are already thinking about, what do we look like after? Like in the crisis, you said, make it safe. After the crisis, what should brands, what should companies be thinking about?
Well, it's a very good question. I think that it's important to understand that this is the time right now for you to plan what to do in order to get the traffic back. Because I can tell you right now that people's behavioral patterns are going to change forever. And as a consequence of that, then they actually may not return back to your company, to the service or to the restaurants or whatever you have. So you need to give them a wake-up call, which is seriously dramatic, to remind them. Now, I want to tell you a little bit about neuroscience. In one of the books I've wrote in the past called Biology, B-U-Y-ology, in that book, I introduced a term which is stolen from a professor called a somatic marker. Now, if you think about 9/11, 9/11 was a negative somatic marker. It's something so dramatic you'll never forget. And you won't forget even who you're together with the day it happened, who you called, or even what you're thinking, because it's so profound. It's almost like an emotional bookmark burned into your brain. Now, what we are experiencing right now with COVID-19 is a negative somatic marker. We will never forget what's happening now. And what neuroscience tells us is that you have to basically level out a negative somatic marker with a positive somatic marker. And if you're not able to do that, there is a risk that your message will never be heard and there won't be a behavioral pattern rebounding back to the original patterns you had before the crisis. So you have to create a positive somatic marker. And a positive somatic marker is to do something so dramatic that people will never forget it, whatever it is. So I'll give you an example. One of our supermarket clients here in the US is a supermarket chain which is all about safety now. And they actually have invested in trolley or shopping cart washing machines. Can you believe it? And then literally you get your freshly washed shopping cart out of the washing machine. I mean, I can't even say it, right? And it just sends a very clear signal that I have my freshly washed shopping cart coming out of the machine before I'm shopping around. Now, I don't need to tell you, it's such a small thing, but it's very, very dramatic signal to send that we are seriously clean. I want you to think about two things as a business owner. The first thing is, what do you do to remove any fears and concerns that you are not indirectly contaminated? Even though the crisis is gone, it will still be in the back of everyone's head. The second thing I want you to do is to figure out a new way to get people back into your place, whatever that place is, into your service. And you have to do that by screaming so loud that people are saying, my God, yeah, I forgot about these people. But yeah, actually, I want to go back there and revisit them, because then you almost force people back to the old track so they can start using your restaurants or whatever it is. That whole thing you have to start planning now. So even though you are in panic now, and I do understand you're in panic now, everyone is in panic, then this is the moment for you to think about the future, not about the now, but about the tomorrow.
That is brilliant. A shopping cart washing machine. That is beyond brilliant. It really is, because everybody hates their shopping cart, right? They just do. There's grime, there's kids, there's flyers, there's yeah. Well, so tell me what you're working on now. I know you're always working on something fun. What's your next project? What is your latest project?
Well, you're saying it in a super diplomatic way, I can hear, Chester. Thank you for doing that. So I'm writing on my next book called The Ministry of Common Sense, and the book will be out after the COVID-19 crisis hopefully has disappeared from planet Earth, and it's an incredibly fun book, I have to say. I know you have sneak peeked it, you've heard a little bit about it. I won't say more beside the fact that it's a book which, there we go, that's the book. That book will be out most likely early February 2021, and the book is all about how stupidities has really taken over corporate America, and it's making life really tricky to operate in. And the book is addressing how do we solve this whole thing. So won't say more. This is a really bad teaser, I know, but at least it's a teaser for a book which is going to be out there once the dust has settled from COVID-19, right?
Yeah. Well, we have a great expression we like to say, it's common sense, it's uncommonly practiced. And the sneak peek that I got at your work is, boy, there's a lot of uncommon, silly, stupid things out there. And you do it in such a joyful way. Yeah. It makes you go, well, who thought that was a good idea? Well, listen,
Jessica, can I ask you a question? I just want, because before we go, I was thinking about you the other day because I'm in Australia, in Sydney right now, and I was together with this wonderful guy who is running a branding marketing agency, and he came up with an idea, which was that he wanted to give gratitude to the world right now. So he actually was changing his whole business model through this whole crisis, and he was now producing t-shirts. And the reason why he was producing t-shirts were that he's swimming in the sea every morning, and the beach was just about to close down, and the lifeguard was saying to this guy, hey, if you keep a distance, we'll keep the beach open, but if you go too close to each other, we'll close the beach. So he produced these t-shirts, which are basically saying keep 6 feet away from everyone, and they're really fun, and they give you an excuse to say that to the world. And he's donating all the money to suicide lines and help support lines. And I thought about this story. I just had to tell you this story because your work and your book is all about gratitude. And I want to say to everyone right now, I think this is a moment for us to reset our life for a moment and ask ourselves, how can we help others during this whole thing? Not just from a commercial point of view, but also from a private point of view. I've personally spent enormous amount of time helping a lot of people in need of this crisis, and I've realized it actually gives you a feeling which you just can't buy for money. You have to experience it, and I think this is a good time. So I just want to tell you this story because your book is all about that, leading with gratitude, and I think we need to reintroduce that whole idea, and particularly doing it during the crisis right now.
Well, I think that's beautifully said. You know, I've made a commitment to post just a picture of something that I'm grateful for every day. And, you know, our world is very small right now. So it's, you know, on a walk, it's a picture of a tree or our grandkids. And we actually have a hashtag. It's hashtag Find Your Gratitude. So I need to ask you, so where did you find your gratitude today, Martin? Where was it?
Well, I'm going to say something which is horrible cliche, but actually, when I looked at you, I really you make me very hot inside because I feel that you are the essence of what gratitude is, and you always have an incredible positive attitude to life, because I believe that you fundamentally believe that the more you give, the more you get in the end of the day, and it really has this self-fulfilling positive prophecy, right, going on. I think a lot of people can learn from you. So my gratitude today is you.
Ah! Well, thank you, Martin. Okay, we're in the last few minutes here. So give me your 3 tips for business leaders, for people that want to rebrand. What are your 3 tools for people to rebrand themselves in the COVID crisis?
Well, the first thing is you have to find your root cause. You have to find the root cause of why people are not buying your product or buying your service. Don't go into panic, and don't say to yourself, "Hey, I had to lower the prices, so I had to give people discount." That actually may not be the real issue. The issue may be that there's another underlying issue, just as we talk about with Hyundai. So that would probably be one. I think the second one is that this whole COVID-19 crisis that will continue in a second round and a third round, and you better be prepared for a change of your business model. And as you change your business model, you should see what's happening right now as a wake-up call. I know it's really difficult to see there's anything positive because it's seriously negative at the moment, but if you are looking at the glass half full instead, say to yourself, this is a good time for me to rethink my business model. A good friend of mine, she owns a restaurant here in Sydney in Australia, and she's converted the whole restaurant into a supermarket. And I asked her yesterday, I said to her yesterday, listen, what have you learned? She said, listen, I actually think when I'm opening up the restaurant again, I want to have half supermarket, half restaurant, because people love to buy these high quality Italian products, and they want to do that after they've been eating their food. So why don't we combine it? So this is a really good way for you right now to rethink your business model. And the third thing I want to say is that at least in the meantime, while you're doing all your preparation, also think about what are you going to do when you're out of this crisis in general. What is your next step now to get traffic back into your stores, into your restaurants, into your businesses? Because there is life after COVID-19. And I think it's super important for you now to start figuring out what is the big somatic marker, as we talked about, which are going to wake everyone up and saying, hey, oh, you guys still exist. I've forgotten about you. Because you have to remember, people feel that you were around decades ago, because time has changed. It's almost like you have post-COVID and pre-COVID. It's like everything back in the past, it was just like back 10 years ago. And you are included in that mindset. That means you have to reactivate your top of mind activation in people's mind. And that requires an effort.
Yeah. So where can we find more about your business, about your great advice? And by the way, on Martin's website is a 2-minute video of that woman converting her restaurant into a grocery store. It's fabulous. So shout out your website.
Yeah. Check it out. Yeah, first of all, martinlindstrom.com. Super difficult email address, I know, but that's the way to visit. And if you, just as you're pointing out, if you go to my social channels and you go into Lindstrom Company on LinkedIn, or you go into Facebook, which is Martin Lindstrom, or Twitter, you will find me there, and you'll find a new case, a video case every day about small businesses around the world collapsing and rebuilding their business as a consequence of COVID-19. So I have a little series there. So if you want to be inspired, and check it out, and hopefully it can give you an idea too about what to do post-COVID.
Excellent. Well, ladies and gentlemen, he is Martin Lindstrom. He has become a dear friend of mine. He is the Minister of Common Sense, one of the greatest branding minds the world has ever known, live and in color from way down under in Australia. Thank you so much for being on the show, Martin. It's always a pleasure. You're always so energizing. I'm so glad we met and that I can call you my friend.
You are so kind. I can only say the same, and I just want to say to everyone, listen, and do me a favor, lead with gratitude. And I think if there's one hero on planet Earth doing that, it's the guy you have next to me on the screen right now. So let's use this as a positive thing rather than a negative thing, okay? Thanks, Chester.
You're the best. Take care, Martin. Well, listen, how can you not love Martin Lindstrom? So join us for another great 30 minutes. Our next guest is going to be my dear friend, Marshall Goldsmith. He is the author of many best-selling books. I love his book, Triggers. I love his book, What Got You Here Won't Get You There. It will be an engaging conversation. He's the world's #1 leadership coach. He'll have some great advice for us. So join us again. If it's another 30 minutes of great information, great inspiration, and your personal roadmap to create a wonderful culture of gratitude where you work and where you live. And by the way, if you want to look at any of our past shows, ours or Marshall Goldsmith's, go to methodsof.com/network and see all the past shows there. You know, it's been a real pleasure to spend 30 minutes with you here today. Join us every Tuesday and Thursday on LinkedIn or your platform of choice. You know, it's always at the same bat time, same bat channel. I always like to close by saying, in this crisis and just in life after the crisis, 3 things. Be grateful, be kind, and be good to everybody, because everybody is having a tough day, especially now. Be grateful, be kind, be good to everybody. Everybody's having a tough day. Well, listen, none of this happens without the amazing people at the Methods Network and probably the world's greatest online producer of all time, Brent Klein. So lots of love. Be careful, be safe, wash your hands. We'll see you next time with Marshall Goldsmith. It's going to be awesome. Cheers.